So I heard that you just have to take like paid time off. Like
You
you just
do,
have to like take sick leave
if you want to
to
go out before.
but the crazy thing is like you never know when you're going to give birth or like what's going to happen.
Exactly. So what I did was I think I did like the week before. But you're a second time mom, so you might
It might progress faster like
yeah, you might give birth earlier potentially. But like at the very end, it was like a week before my due date. I was just like, I not can't do this anymore. Like, but I don't know if your district is treating you well, but mine did a really good job of like starting to give out my cases already. So it was like pretty chill the last couple of weeks that I was there, but it was still exhausting and a struggle to like get up and get ready and
oh
get to
yeah,
work and drive
just
and
like living.
live.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
live your
sure.
life.
No, I
So,
I get it.
so why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and your social media accounts?
So my name's Tiffany Lee. I am a nationally certified school psychologist practicing in Northern Virginia. I have a YouTube channel dedicated to like school psychology content under my name Tiffany Lee, and I also have an Instagram and TikTok under the handle School Psych Tiffany.
And how long have you been running your accounts? Do you know? Because I always have a hard time remembering for myself.
So for me, I do remember because it was when I started grad school. Do you remember when you started grad school? Like you didn't really know anything, like first semester. It's just
Yeah.
everything hits you like a truck. So
Yeah.
that
So how
was
many years?
2018.
2018. So we're looking at like 5 years ago, 6 years
Yeah, I guess
ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah. I hate to say this, but I think we're like one of the OG school psychs on social media.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I thought you had your accounts longer.
I did it in grad school. I think maybe I started it like a year before you, is
Okay.
my guess, because I think it was like 6 years ago. It was in grad school too. And I think I'm just like a year or two ahead of you in terms of graduating. Because what year are you going into
This is
as
my
a school
third
psych?
year.
And I think I would be starting my fifth year if I wasn't
Okay.
staying home. So yeah, similar. Where did you start first? Because I know you have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You have a lot of different things going on.
Well, I don't think TikTok was as popular in 2018. I like it's crazy how much it blew up. I started on YouTube. Really like I just wanted to post personal content on YouTube and see what would happen. I'm really interested in like food and traveling, and so that's kind of what I started out with. But because I was in grad school, I did like a week in my life as a school psychology grad student, and of course that one took off. And so I just started curating content for school psychology, grad school, people that just had a lot of questions about the field.
And you have a lot of videos on your YouTube, and I think you obviously also have a lot of followers on Instagram. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, do you notice differences between like interactions on YouTube versus Instagram or TikTok?
I'm sure you can speak about this as well. I feel like a lot of people probably have accounts on all of these platforms, but what people expect from each one is so different. YouTube is obviously a lot more like long form content. I think people go there to learn like how to's, just like more educational videos. Of course, there's entertainment as well. And I guess for YouTube, it could be like a little bit less polished because it's longer form content. For Instagram, I feel like it's super curated. People like having like a nice feed, having those themes. And I find it to be more daunting to like create a post because I have to think so much about like the caption. Is this going to go with like the rest of my pictures?
Yeah.
Does it flow with the rest of my posts? But I am pretty active on Instagram just through stories. And then TikTok, just like a lot of Gen Z, like very fast paced. But I feel like you can reach so many more people through TikTok.
Yeah, and I feel like TikTok is probably the easiest to like push stuff out onto, even though I haven't really been super active on there lately, but it's kind of like stories, right? Like on Instagram. It's just easier to like come up a little bit more authentically and just be like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what's going on." You don't have to sit there and like try to plan something and create something very specific. What about your followers or like commenters? Do you get like more positive versus negative interactions on certain platforms?
For me, Instagram kind of feels like a bubble where there's a lot of like school psychology people, whether they're in grad school or they're practicing, and you're able to build that community with people that kind of get you. Just my personal experience. Whereas TikTok, it might, there's a For You page and they push content out to people who might be interested. So I have all kinds of people looking at my content, whether it's people that are looking for more information about the field, they don't know what they want to do next in their life, or it might be advocates, lawyers, people who are out to get you.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds weird to say, but, like, we do have, like, a group of haters, like, against school psychologists, unfortunately, for different reasons, and if your video gets pushed out to the wrong group on TikTok, it cannot be fun, for sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's happened to both of us. So,
yeah, yeah, so that's the one kind of caveat with being on TikTok, and I agree with you, I feel like Instagram is definitely more of a bubble, it feels a bit safer, like, it's people who are usually other school psychs or educators who wanna be following you, that's who your content is being pushed out to, not to potentially other danger zones.
mhm.
Okay, and what setting are you going to be working in this year as a school psych?
So this year I will be in middle school again, which I have been really enjoying. And I think it's kind of nice to, like, now I feel like I have less jitters. I kind of know what I'm getting myself into. And I'm more prepared. They are kind of crazy just because, they're young, but they think they're old, and you just deal with a lot of shenanigans, and a lot of them start like smelling really bad, but don't take care of their hygiene.
Yeah, puberty.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. I would like to kind of branch out like in the near future, whether that means like an additional assignment or any kind of change to just get different experiences.
Mhm,
But for
mhm.
now, I'm in middle school and I have one placement, and I'm super grateful for that too.
Yeah, that is awesome. So you prefer to be at one site versus like spread across different schools ideally?
I feel like I'm able to definitely like give my all, like, my time, expertise, and just like my full attention to the school and be really involved in the systems level work that way as well. I can't imagine being in multiple sites, but I'm sure there's pros and cons for that as well.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah. Some psychs actually prefer to be at multiple schools because of everything we have to juggle. You can be like really focused when you're at each site and you can be pretty set on like your boundaries. Like,
Hmm.
this is the time I have here. Sorry, I'm not able to like run that extra group or deal with this. Like, I have to be at my other site. I have a meeting for my other site. I think that those boundaries are starting to blur a little bit more now that there's the virtual world, like since COVID is like, well, why can't you take this meeting? Like, I know you're at your other school, but you have digital access. But there's a lot of psychs who I think enjoy being at multiple sites. I'm like you though, I prefer to be at one. I feel like maybe people who are like educational on Instagram like us probably prefer to be at one because we're people who like to go deep and like really like delve into things. And it is hard to do that if you're spread thin. Like, we're already spread thin at one site. And,
Hmm.
like you wish you had more time still. In grad school, did you get experience at like elementary school or high school as well?
Yeah, thankfully, through practicum internship, I was able to be in all different settings, and I'm super thankful for that because I feel like I'm not like super clueless about any of this, the
Mhm,
settings,
mhm.
but being in, practicum for one semester doesn't really show you everything. So
Definitely not, but you got to dip your toes in. Do you think that like middle school is where you will end up really wanting to be, or this is just where you've been and you're enjoying it for now?
I'm enjoying it for now. I feel like now that I have a toddler, like maybe I'm more interested in elementary.
Mhm, mhm.
Initially, I was like, yeah, they're cute, but they're like so gross. Like, it just, like lots of like,
They're messy. Yeah.
yeah, lots of fluids and
Germs. Yeah.
yeah.
I think that psychs will like understand this well. Like, anytime you start a new school, like you're gonna get pretty sick because there's like a new population of germs. But definitely at elementary schools, I feel like when I worked there, I got sick way more often than at the high school.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah, well, because like you're saying, like they put their fingers in their mouth and their nose, like their food, they're messy, they're kids. So the reason I asked about that is because I know there's a lot of differing opinions about middle school. So like I feel like people either love middle school or they hate it. Like I feel most psychs say they're either like on one spectrum, elementary, or the other spectrum, high school. And middle school is this really cool middle ground where you kind of get the best of both worlds, unless you're the psych that hates middle school, which there are a lot of them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think they're a really fun group to work with, but they can be very difficult. Like you said, puberty. There's a lot of changes going on physically and then emotionally, and then just like the brain development. Like it's just so rapid.
Yeah,
They don't even know what's going on.
all the hormones.
My school sixth through eighth, and so those like sixth graders are like babies. I mean, I know a lot of places sixth grade is still elementary school.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
they're motivated by like stickers and like helping the teacher, whereas the eighth graders are like taller than me. They think, they're too cool for middle school now.
Has anyone ever confused you for a student? Like maybe since grad school?
Not as much in middle school, but when I was in high school, for sure. I mean, I like to wear my backpack and
Yeah.
like wear sneakers and stuff. So they'll stop
Yeah.
me in the front office.
I hope you're not offended by that. I only ask because I had that experience when I was younger too. And people would be like, what are you, if I was in the office, like behind the counter, what are you doing back here? Or why aren't
Mhm.
you in class? I'm like, because I work here. What would you say is your favorite type of work to do as a school psychologist?
Ooh, that's tough. Just because like I'm still early career, I feel like I do enjoy the assessment portion of it, not so much the report writing because it takes me so long and I'm trying to like perfect everything. I do love working with the kids in like any capacity. I love that one-on-one setting for assessment, but I also think groups can be really fun. But I'm sure, any school psychologist would know it's really hard to like form those groups, get them going to
Oh,
make
yeah.
them happen.
Hmm.
But when you are able to do that, it's really amazing
Yeah.
to have a plan, like hang out with them and see them make progress.
And what would you say is the best thing about being a school psychologist if you had to pick like one or two things?
Oh gosh. Okay, it's going to sound really like cheesy, but I think it's like the relationship building portion of it. And when you do see like any sort of improvement or like change in the student, it's so rewarding.
Yeah, I definitely like it just warms your heart and you feel like so proud of the student and also like you feel a sense of reward too because while they did it like you helped support them or the family in like getting there. You
Yeah.
got to be a little part of that improvement.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
fun. What about the most challenging thing or maybe an aspect of the job that you don't love?
For me, just starting out, I think navigating the school system, the politics, that was really hard for me because they don't really dive into a lot of that in grad school. They might talk about it, but each school is so different. Each district is so different and like the culture. So learning all of that, learning all the laws and like the
Yeah.
paperwork, it took
Oh.
me so long and I'm still learning every day.
And it differs in like every district. Not
Hmm.
like, let's not even talk about states and across the country, but even like from one district to another, the paperwork, what they call things, the processes, like it's all different.
And if it's confusing for us, like I can't imagine like parents like moving districts and
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely hard for them. And I think that's a big thing in meetings that like I was trying to work on and be aware of was like all these terms become secondhand for us, but they're really jargon based. And parents and even teachers and other members of the team aren't going to stop you every other word to be like, what is that? What do you mean? Like, so trying to really like simplify things as much as possible and not to use the jargon terms, or if you do, to like explain them right away.
yeah.
Have you worked in any other states or just Virginia?
Just Virginia for now, and probably will stay like that, I think.
Mhm, mhm. What's on your mind, Tiffany? What do you think?
Oh, I
Are
would
you
love to move, but,
Yeah,
with almost 2 kids, I think we're
yeah.
probably gonna settle down here, and this is where I grew up, so it just feels like home, but I have talked to and worked with a lot of other school psychologists that are in different states, and it's really crazy how different their work looks.
Has that ever come up for you in your social media accounts where someone is, like, upset or, like, you've noticed how different things are?
Sometimes they don't even know, like, what I'm talking about, like, when when we're talking about, like, different terms or,
Right.
what we call things, like you said, or
Like
they
a
just have
BCD, like, what is that? Oh,
oh,
one
that's
specific
definitely,
county.
like, your county specific.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and then, like, my county calls it something completely different that, like,
Right.
no one uses. But not just that, like the laws, regulations, like how you determine like a specific learning disability might be different
Right.
even across districts. And so, yeah, I'll have people comment like, "Oh, like what are you talking about? Like that's not how
Mhm,
we do things
mhm.
over here." And people love
Yeah.
to correct you. So,
Yep. Yep. Even I feel like it often comes from other school psychologists too, which I'm sure you feel the same way. Like I love seeing how people do things and like learning about it. But the part I don't love is when people get a little bit righteous about it or like, you're wrong, this is the right way. And it's like, well, or could they both be right? We're just in different worlds right now.
yeah.
I do wish, like, I love that there's the flexibility across the country for states and districts to like do things their way, but I do wish there was like just a little bit more generality.
Consistency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
consistency. That's the word I'm looking for. Because it, like you said, if it's confusing for us, like I can't imagine families that move, or like military families too, who move all the time. Feel bad for them.
They're actually the experts.
Yeah, yeah, because they've gone to more places than us for sure. If you weren't a school psychologist, what do you think you'd do?
Oh my gosh. Like ideally, like I it was
Yeah.
either grad school or opening an ice cream shop. I love dessert. Like I love
Oh,
like business and like just entrepreneurship.
I love ice cream. Open an ice cream shop. What kind of ice cream? Do you have a favorite? Like, are you chocolate girl, vanilla girl?
I'm definitely vanilla with maybe like a couple toppings. Like
Yeah.
I like how pure vanilla is and
Hmm.
how you can dress it up. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Kith in New York, but I love their ice cream. They usually use like the hard pack ice cream and then they put it through this machine to kind of swirl like cereals into the ice
Is
cream.
it like a blizzard, but like not exactly
Kind of,
that?
yeah. Except it's not soft serve.
Oh, is it like Cold Stones? Is that kind of a like more that texture?
I would say the texture is different from Cold Stone, but like the
Okay.
concept is sort
I
of
just gotta
similar.
go try that. So it's in New York.
Yeah, and they might have a couple other locations. They're like a streetwear brand and they have like lots of shoes and like
Wait,
clothes.
I think I know them from that. I didn't know they have
They also
ice
have
cream.
Kith treats.
Okay. Okay. What's your favorite flavor? Do you have a favorite flavor ice cream?
So it's usually vanilla, but like right now, like
Just plain
this
vanilla. Like if you went to the grocery store and you're getting a pint of ice cream.
Haagen-Dazs vanilla, not vanilla
Okay.
bean.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, guys, I've got some great news for you. If you're looking to be an efficient and organized school psychologist, School Psych Finds has you covered. I have ready to use forms and an organization course that's tailored specifically to school psychologists so you can spend less time dealing with the administrative part of our job and figuring out how to stay organized and manage all your paperwork, and more time doing what you love, like connecting with your students. I'll leave all the details to the course and the forms in the show notes.
But right now, like throughout my pregnancy, it's been cookie dough.
I'm missing ice cream right now. All right. You need to open an ice cream shop. Like if you ever become a part-time psych, or if you like end up staying at home, I think you should open an ice cream shop and let me come get free ice cream.
Oh, you're always welcome. My husband and I like we always talk about it. Like he loves like shoes and streetwear. Like we can make like
Your own
yes,
version.
yes,
Do
around
it.
DC. And
Yep.
he was like, we can call it with instead of Kith.
You should. I'm sure people would love that. Like we need more ice cream shops here.
And he was like, you can do testing on the side,
Yeah, yeah,
like
or yeah,
at the shop.
yeah, come work with me privately as a psych, and then you can go get ice cream after as your
Yeah.
reward if you're good with the little kids. Okay, so you brought up that you're pregnant. So how far along are you right now?
Right now, I am 33 and a half weeks.
Okay,
So home
and
stretch.
yeah, that the end of pregnancy is rough. I would say like everyone has a different experience. Most of pregnancy was pretty rough for me, but the end, you're just like, all right, the time has come, my dear. I love you,
Yeah.
but come into the world now.
Eviction notice.
Do you know if you're having a boy or girl?
So I have a boy toddler and I'm having a girl soon. And so we're
I'm
very
excited.
excited. And I think I'm mostly excited for like the new experience and also the bows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's so many more clothes I've discovered because I have a boy too. There's so many more clothes options for girls. Like if I go to a store and I go to the baby section, I always see tons of girl clothing and then like this little section for boys. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but I feel like that's how it is in the world too. Like if you go to a mall, it's like all women's clothing everywhere. And then it's like where I thought about it, I'm like, oh, where can my husband get clothes? Just like
That's true. I never
online,
thought
like
about
a
it like that.
department store. Maybe like Macy's will have like its own little men's section, but there's not a lot of guy clothing stores. Yeah. How has being pregnant and being a school psychologist been like working?
It's definitely been tough. Like, this is my second go around at it. I would say just like living has been tough, especially like towards the end. You know, you're just so heavy, like it's hard to breathe. It's like super hot because Virginia summers are humid and gross.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would also say like people do treat you a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so not just like in public, like people will, you know, hold the door for me or, you know, they'll just like randomly come up and talk to me. Like it's fine when it's like a non-invasive question.
Right, right. They're
But
friendlier.
yes, for sure. And then even at work, I feel like it's kind of like a rite of passage thing. Like teachers will come and talk to me, like people I've never talked to, and yeah, like they'll just make conversation, or they'll be more receptive to things that I'm asking for. And so
Yeah. I know it's so interesting because we know that people are like programmed to think like little babies are cute and to be nice and like, oh, loving, but they like start to do that even before the baby's like out in the world. Like when you're carrying it, I noticed that too. And at work and especially in public, like people are so much more friendly and so much nicer and sometimes more invasive. Like they come
yeah.
up to you like if they, they already know you, like, "Oh, hey, like you're pregnant, like da 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 da, my kid." Like they start telling you about their life and you're like, "Oh, all right, cool." Like I don't know you.
Yeah.
I wonder what it is that makes people do that even like before they see the kid. I guess just like that connection. They think of something that like you guys have in common.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing for the
No,
most
no.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. Has anyone just like come up to you and like touched your belly?
They were very close. They had
You're
their
like,
hands out and they're like, "Oh
eh.
wait, like can I touch?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine."
Yeah, yeah. People are getting better, I think, about knowing, like, I think probably social media, right? Where people are seeing all the things that you're not supposed to do. So they happen less and less often. My least favorite thing that I would hear when I was pregnant was about sleep. Like, oh, you better
Mm,
sleep now. Just wait until the baby comes. I'm like, yeah, I know that's not helping me. I already know that when the baby comes, I'm not going to sleep. And it's already hard to sleep when you're pregnant.
I know for so many reasons, like that comment is terrible. Like you can't like rack up the sleep now and then use it for later. Plus,
Yeah.
third trimester, like you can't sleep. Like you're running to the
Yeah.
bathroom or like you're having a hard time breathing.
It's so uncomfortable. And you're not supposed to lay on your back, like,
Hmm.
it's a mess. So this is your second go round. This will be interesting, but also you've switched districts, so I don't know if you would notice this. Like you were pregnant, people are nicer. Then you had your baby. Then you're working, you're not pregnant. Now you're pregnant again. Like, did you notice like a pause in that friendliness and niceness at work?
From people that I'm not close to, yes. Just because like I don't know them that well, and like if I'm not evidently pregnant, they don't really know I have a child at home.
Yeah.
But for people that I am closer with at work, they were, I guess, like we were able to build that extra connection through having kids and, talking about daycare, talking about milestones. So
Right.
in that
Kind of
regard, like we
continued.
were able to like build even like a stronger relationship.
Yeah. And your son, how old is he, you said, right
He's
now?
20 months, so like year and a half.
Okay. So he hasn't started school yet because one thing I get asked a lot and I wanted to ask you was, do you think that being a mom has or will impact your work as a school psychologist? I've always said it's hard to know right now because like my kid isn't school age, but how have you felt so far?
I think even just like going through pregnancy and having like going through like the baby stages and having a toddler, like I've just grown so much like empathetically and just understanding parents. And I've definitely been like more careful with the words that I use and like even like my facial expressions like during
Mhm. Mhm.
meetings. I
Mhm.
think I'm just like a lot more understanding.
Yeah. Like, I definitely don't think that you have to have kids to be a great school psychologist. But I think that having them gives you more of that perspective and empathy, just even more, right? Doesn't mean you didn't have it before, but you
Right.
understand it on a more personal level. And everyone's experience is different, but you're like, oh my gosh, even with my little baby, like when things are not going the way they're supposed to be going, like you understand now that like feeling of stress and like we need to fix this, like what's wrong, like
Well, okay, when a parent says they're tired because of their newborn, like now we understand like what that actually means. Like before, I
Yes,
feel like yeah, like you're probably tired because you didn't get sleep. But like
right.
we've experienced it. It's just
It's a
different.
different, yeah, it's something that you can't understand fully until you've experienced it yourself. And everyone's kid is different, right? So, like, my experience as a mom might be different than yours was or than another person's was. Same with pregnancy, right? Like, some women love being
Hmm.
pregnant. Like, they would want to be pregnant all the time. Like, they just have such a good experience. I'm like, I'm glad I got to experience that, but I'm not really looking forward to like the actual pregnancy part again. Like yes, excited to have a kid, but I
Can't
had
relate.
yeah, like I had really rough morning sickness for like months. So that terrifies me more than like thinking about giving birth again, like that morning sickness. So, of course, just because you've experienced something doesn't mean you know all the experiences of someone who has that in common. But I do think it helps. And I think as our kids get older too, like we're going to understand even more, like once
Hmm.
they're in school. Do you have any thoughts about sharing your son on social media? Because I haven't really researched it much, but I feel like there's so much fear mongering out there where I'm like,
Hmm.
is there something wrong if I like post him occasionally on social media? Like, am I hurting him? Is there privacy issues? Like, I want to post him, but then I'm scared. Have you had those thoughts at
Oh
all?
my God, I think about it all the time. Because
Yeah.
obviously, like, I'm biased, but I think he's like the cutest thing in the world. I want
Yeah.
to share him with the world.
Yeah.
But I also want to protect him, especially
Yeah.
when you have some sort of following, big or small. They're strangers, and you, with the internet, you never know who
Yeah.
is looking at your content.
Yeah, and it's weird because, and I hate to even really talk about this, but like, I don't know if this is a school psychologist thing or just everyone feels this way, but like, you want to believe that most people are good and have good intentions, and that like, oh no, like nobody is on my page like following me to be creepy or like do anything weird with my son's photos, but like those people exist in the world. Like, and it happens, and no one thinks it's going to happen to them,
Hmm.
but it does happen. And so that's something I struggle with, I think, as a mom as well. Is like, I'm excited. I want to build those connections with my followers. I think my kid's super cute too. Everyone thinks their kid is cute. I want to show him. But then every time I do, I just feel like a sense of like, am I supposed to be doing this? Or is something bad going to happen? I don't even know what. Just
Well,
someone
it's like
being
new
creepy.
territory.
Yeah.
Like social media is, I mean, I still think it's like pretty new, like
Yeah.
even if it's like 10, 15 years. Do you ever think about like what they would think or say like in the future if they like
Yeah,
see
that's
that their
something.
like baby pictures are like exposed or like their milestones and
Yeah, that's what I see. Like, so I do think there's a lot of fear mongering about sharing your kid on social media. And I think it brings up good points. But that is one of the big things that I see people saying, like, what's your kid going to think when they see that you posted like their 1-year-old birthday photo online? I'm
mm,
like, are they going to see that? Are they going to care? Like, if I think like, oh, my mom posted a picture of me on my birthday, like when I was 1, and I don't think I would really care. I think the question is like if it gets used for inappropriate purposes by like creepy people online, and they take
mm.
it and like post it on the dark web and do something really creepy and inappropriate with it, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I would care. But like 20, 30 years from now, is my kid gonna be like searching for his own photo? Like, I don't know.
I don't
I have a
know. Like,
hard
what if they want to
time.
be a very private person and like all of their stuff is out there in the world? It's just like things that I think
I
about all
think
the
about it
time.
too, but I'm just like, I try to imagine, like, well, how would that actually play out? Like, 30 years from now, the world's going to be so different. Like, is my kid really going to? I don't know. There's so much content that's being pushed out all the time. Like, unless I was like a super famous YouTuber and then like it was everywhere. I also tend to just post it on my story. So, like, that helps me feel like it's a little bit more protected because they disappear. But who knows? I don't know. It's one of those another part of mom life, right? Where like things that you're constantly juggling that's like behind the scenes that you don't realize
Yeah.
until you're a mom. Like it's another thing that's millions of things in the back of your mind you're trying to juggle all the time.
Yeah, and I have friends that like they either like mosaic like their kids' faces or
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
they put like emojis over
Yeah.
them. They don't like put their names out there. And I
Yeah.
think that's all it's all good, but who knows like what the right thing is to do.
Yeah, and I guess there is no answer because we don't know what the world's going to be like, and you don't know who's looking at it or who's not looking at it. I guess it's just good to be mindful and aware. And then I think there's extremes. Like there's people that like will refuse to post their kid ever, which is
Hmm.
fine. That's totally their decision. And then there's like content creators who like post their
Family
kids in
vloggers and
in very
hmm.
compromising positions where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if something was going to get used, like it's the content you're pushing out, which that is a little bit sad, but All right. Well, maybe one day we'll figure it out. It's hard because I think also we're in such a niche community. Like, I feel so connected to the community and like
Hmm.
I want to share that stuff with them. It's not like I'm just throwing this out there to the world. It's like, we interact with our
Right.
followers. Speaking of social media and challenges, like, what are some of the challenges you've faced in being a school psychologist and running your account?
I think being like just working full time and trying to create content is hard. And then,
Yeah.
add having a kid to that. And so the consistency portion is really, really hard for me. On top of that, like any like negative comments, haters, like I read some of the questions to my husband and he was like, "Oh, no, you don't handle that well at all." There was one situation on TikTok. I was using
Of
like
course, it was TikTok.
I was using a sound and talking about, when educators don't provide intervention and, they go straight for testing.
Mhm, mhm.
And that got pushed out to advocates, sped teachers, and lawyers.
Mm. Thank you,
And
TikTok. Thank you.
oh yeah, no. At first, like it was like slowly rising, like the views, the engagement, and then like sometimes like you never know when it's gonna blow up. So like a couple hours
Yep.
later, I started getting all these comments, and it was at like I don't know 66,000 views or something.
Jeez.
And I was like, I don't know when that happened, but then there's all these like angry comments, and
Right.
then like this one person started tagging like all the advocates
Oh.
and like bringing everyone over to my TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
And they're saying like this is illegal, like you can't like deny like
Oh,
giving
yeah.
like
I know
testing,
what
blah blah
they're trying to say.
blah.
Yeah.
Like
It's like
you
it's a
can't like hold them back.
30-second TikTok. Like, it doesn't encompass every single thing that I mean. Like, it's one little snippet. We didn't have a whole conversation, but they act like you did.
Well, and then they like threaten you by like with HR and like, oh, like how would you like it if like we
Uh-huh.
found where you worked
Oh my
and
gosh. People are
your
so
workplace
nasty.
like found out about this. And so of course like I got stressed when I saw that. I
Yeah.
privated it. And then I found out the one person who was tagging everyone, they created a new account just to upload my TikTok multiple times and tag
These
all these
people are
people.
crazy, Tiffany.
They're
That's
crazy.
TikTok. Yeah, they're crazy. They harass and when I say these people, I mean people on TikTok. I don't mean like advocates. Like, there's in every profession, every group of people, like there's good ones and there's bad ones. And there's ones that
Agreed.
just seek to create problems. And yeah, that like I think there's some wonderful advocates. I'm sure you've worked with wonderful advocates too that like actually were really helping families. And
Mhm.
then there's the ones that did what they did to you. It's like, what's your goal here? Why are you harassing this school psychologist? Not only did you like create all this stress on her video, but then you created a new account to repost her stuff. Like, I'm sorry, but what that to me, like as a psychologist, indicates like there is something else going on here and like you need other fulfilling things in your life. I don't even mean that in a mean way. Like, you have the time and energy to like
Yeah.
create that kind of drama and like you're seeking to go there. Like, why?
Oh, they have too much time on their hands, obviously. But yeah,
And
it's
probably not
scary. Like
happy. Like, if I had time on my hands, would I want to be repurposing other people's videos to harass them, or would I want to like go on vacation, go like spend time with my friends and family? It's sad.
it's their source of empowerment.
Yeah,
It is sad. But I think especially as like an early career school psychologist, that's scary. Like you don't
it
know if like what
is.
you said was like did I actually say something illegal? Like is this gonna get me
Right.
in trouble? So I
Right.
started freaking out. I'm like reaching out to my supervisor, like to make sure like I'm
Oh,
good. Just because like it was out there and I couldn't get rid of it anymore. Like
yeah.
once
And it was
people download your
stressful.
content, like it's out there forever.
That's true.
And they'll put like all these random captions on it in like big red
Mhm.
letters, and like that might
Mhm.
not even be like what you said in
Or
your
like
content.
twist it out of
Yeah,
context and then
right,
it gets pushed to people who don't have the training and experience that we do, and then like it can get construed to be like you were saying something that you weren't. Like,
right,
I'm sure you weren't saying like you can't ever test a kid until they've had intervention. Like, you were saying what we all say, which is like you should have interventions first. And that's not an exclusive statement, but like that's just best practice. If you're trying to say someone has a disability for special education, you should have tried other things in most situations before you jump to that. or while you're testing. Like, anyways, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm sorry that happened. I had a video that had something similar. They didn't repurpose my video though, but I had someone who, like, I had to block people because they were being insane and harassing me, and they created new accounts to come harass me more. Like, it's just, TikTok can be vicious. And luckily, I've not ever had that level of an experience on Instagram, but it does kind of taint your view on social media, at least for a little bit, because then you're scared to post anything because
Yeah.
you don't want that negativity and people to come for your livelihood and your job. Like, when you're just trying to push out content for people, and again, it's such a small snippet of something that you're producing, it doesn't encompass like your exclusive view on the entire topic.
Honestly, like part of me was like honored that someone took that much time and effort to like go through that. But like you're right. I'm definitely scared to like be more sarcastic and post like I guess funnier content because
Yeah.
people take it like they don't take it as a joke.
Right. And like, if it gets pushed out to people who aren't school psychologists, which inevitably, at least on TikTok, it will be misunderstood, or you'll be portrayed as like, oh, that's school psychs like don't care, or they're making jokes out of things. It's like, no, every single profession has like its cliche things that happen, and like they joke about it to kind of get through it, or like to lighten things up, or to connect with other people. Like, we're psychologists. We came into this job to help kids. Obviously, that's what we want to do. But people outside of the field don't always understand our inside jokes, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
or the struggles that we deal with on a repetitive basis that are just kind of funny to like make little things about. I think that's why like school psych memes, one of the like funny pages on social media says like they want to stay anonymous, right? Because like you're saying, like that's their whole content is like making sarcasm and jokes, which it has tons of followers because it's an outlet that people enjoy. People need comedy. But it is sad that like we have to feel stressed that someone might try to come for our job or get us in trouble or canceled or fired or whatever, just because we're pushing out content for other school psychologists and educators.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say, like, proportionally, that you have more positive engagements than negative experiences?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I would say like Instagram is the most positive for me. And then YouTube, I'll get like some like negative comments, but mostly positive. And then TikTok is really where like you can go either way. But for the most part, everyone's pretty positive. They're curious. I think that's really good. And then you'll just have like a couple of people who always have a bad day.
Yeah. Well, and I think the order you listed, I agree with. And it goes from like your community to like branching out where YouTube, your video can be seen by people who aren't really following you for your whole content. What's something you think people don't realize about having a social media account like you do?
The kind of content that we push out, like there's a lot of thought that goes into it because of, what we just talked about. And then all the time that goes into pushing out content, creating the content, like curating it, whether it's on, whatever platform, it still
Mhm.
takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And it's kind of like a second job.
Yeah, it is. And it's not like it pays very well either. Not that school psychology, I mean, granted, compared to other jobs in the country, like being a school psychologist does pay pretty well, but it's not like the get rich career. And neither is social media in our field because it's such a small community.
Hmm. Oh
Yeah.
no, you can't go into it for the money, like either of it.
No, not even on social media. So, and I think that's something that like I've noticed I have in common with all the other creators is like we're doing this. Not obviously we're school psychologists because we're passionate about helping people. We're doing the social media because we're so passionate about school psychology and what we do. It's like another job, but it's because we enjoy it and it's fun.
Yeah, for sure. I do love the community though, and
Yeah.
the people, like the engagement is very fulfilling for me.
For sure. I love that, and I've had people say before like this community has helped me feel less burnt out and more connected, and I even as the creator, I felt that way when I was working in the schools and still do, is like it makes you more excited and passionate because it's such a isolating profession. Like you really usually are the only psychologist at the school. And if there's another one, it's like one other person.
Yeah.
So do you have any future plans that you want to share about with your social media or your YouTube?
Nothing in particular, but I'm sure we will have an episode out together soon.
That would
I
be
know your life
fun.
is crazy right now, but
Both
we
of
will
us,
get
we both,
something in
you have
soon.
a new human coming into the world. Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully we can do that. I do want to get to know a little bit more about you as a school psychologist. So, I'm just curious, do you have a favorite kind of evaluation that you like doing, like a specific disability category that you like evaluating for?
I think they're all like very interesting, and I
Hmm.
think I'm still like in the beginning stages of my career where like I take each case and like I dive like super deep, and then I go into like rabbit holes, and then I start messaging you about like learning disabilities.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy giving the ramble. I just
Hmm.
find it like interesting and fun, and
Finger
then
holes.
oh, except for that one, except for that one.
Such a
Um,
weird subtest.
I understand why it's there, but no,
Yeah.
like I can't keep up with
Yeah. I know. Even as the examiner, you're like, wait, which hole did they poke
that.
their finger into? Yeah.
And I also like any of like the verbal comprehension subtests. Like given that they're like not like EL or like there's other like
Right. Those are
circumstances,
fun.
I just feel like you're able to like have more like a conversation with the student, or like you're
Hmm.
able to learn more about how they think. So I
Yeah.
find those more interesting. And
Yeah.
yeah, like
So you
things
like
like
the SLD type, like I'm thinking the different categories. Do you like SLD? Like that's the most fun for
I
you
think for
to,
me it's more like yeah, solving like a puzzle.
yeah.
Whereas like ED autism, there's just it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
information that you're compiling,
It's
and
more
then
subjective, honestly, is
yeah,
what it
for
is.
sure. And I feel like I'm still racking my experience and learning more about it, so I don't feel as
Yeah.
confident. It's still
Yeah.
very interesting.
There's a lot more like qualitative data that you have to gather, and it feels, even though we have expertise, it feels a lot more subjective. SLD can be very subjective too,
Hmm.
depending on the method you use. But like that social emotional stuff, yeah, I think that definitely comes a lot more with experience and like repeatedly seeing cases that are kind of similar or like remind you of other cases, and you're like, oh yeah, this is what that was. Like this is what helped that case. That brings me to imposter syndrome. So, have you felt that before? Do you still feel it?
Oh my gosh, all the time. I think it was definitely like the worst in grad school, just because you feel like you know something, and then you learn that you don't know anything.
Yeah.
And then yeah, like as you learn more, you realize that like you really don't know much at all.
Yeah. But you do. Then that's the thing with
Hmm.
imposter syndrome. And I almost think in some ways, like to have a little bit of imposter syndrome always is a good thing
Yeah.
because that means that you realize like you're constantly growing and you're realizing the things that you don't know and you still want to learn. And you never feel like, oh, I'm the expert now. I've learned everything.
That's dangerous. Like I
Yeah.
would never want to get that complacent and like comfortable.
No.
Like
And
always
people
have
do.
questions.
Yeah. Especially in this field, things are always changing, always evolving, and no case is ever the same. And things can look like something and be something else. So, yeah, I feel like I'm always learning. When did you kind of start to feel like a little bit more confident in yourself as a school psychologist?
I think probably my second year, because I was in the same district, same school. I was able to work with, the same staff. And I was starting to get the hang of, the paperwork and how the district kind of does things. So a little bit more comfortable my second year. I am feeling a lot less like jittery this year, like coming into things. But yeah, I mean, there's so many times, I think every meeting, like I get nervous.
Well, because we're expected to have all the answers or be the expert. At least that's what we're trained to think. I start to wonder sometimes, like, well, actually, do other people expect that from us? Or is that something that we've like put on our own shoulders? Like, are the teachers or the parents sitting there being like, well, why doesn't Tiffany know the answer to this? Why isn't she giving me the solution? Are we just putting that pressure on ourselves?
I'm definitely like, I'm working on trying to feel confident and sound competent while not having all the answers, and
Hmm.
telling myself it's okay to tell people I don't have the answer right now, but I can go and look into it for you and then we can come back. But even that's
Yeah.
hard because I want to feel like I have all the answers.
Yeah. And I think we never will have all the answers, but I think that comes with time and experience and like recognizing the moments that you don't know the answer and going back yourself and then researching that and trying to find, as much of an answer as you can. Sometimes there is no answer and it's just like very subjective. And this is what I think, this has been my experience.
Right.
I think people and parents are much more receptive to that because it's authentic. I think people who try to like pretend to know, they almost like convince themselves that they know, so then they don't ever go back to learn that information. But like if you actually are like, oh yeah, I don't know that, and it's okay that I don't know that, like, but I'm gonna look that up and I'm gonna get back to you, or like for your own betterment.
Yeah,
I
and I think
know,
that's like one way to like cover your ass plus be more likable.
and it's actually more helpful. Like one
Mhm.
of my pet peeves in a personal way is like when people pretend to know something or adamantly act like say that something is a truth when that's not the case. Like even if they truly believe it, it's like, well, how do you know that that's true? And that comes up so much. And I learned that through grad school too. And this comes up on social media a lot too. It's like just because someone told you that or taught you that doesn't mean it's true. And I learned that for myself. Like I thought, no, 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 this is what I was taught. Like this is the right
Mhm.
answer. But then when I went and researched it myself and like asked people and like really took a deep dive into it, I was like, oh, I was taught that, but that is not the law, the only way, the correct way. So I think a little bit of imposter syndrome can be helpful. And I think it's good for grad students to know and new psychs to know, like you said, like it gets better. It's always there a little bit. That doesn't mean you're not a good psych. It actually could mean like you'll be a better one because
Yep,
you have a little bit of
100%.
that. All right, let's do a quick fire like would you rather round of questions, and we can get into the answers a little bit, but I'll just ask you, would you rather do A or B?
Okay.
All right. Would you rather do FBAs or BIPs?
Oh my gosh, isn't it like one package?
Yeah, but if you had to be on one side, I know I thought about that after I made it. I
Oh,
was like, oh, I'm lumping them into two separate things.
I
Yeah.
used to love like the behavior side of psych, but like once I kind of got into school psychology, like this is not my favorite thing to do.
No.
If I had to choose, maybe BIPs
Okay.
because you're able to like just take the data and like monitor progress. Whereas like
Yeah.
FBAs, like how do you actually know if that's the
Yeah.
function?
Yeah.
I'm always like questioning.
Yeah, and that's where it's like, oh, should have gone into medicine or something if we wanted like the answer, or math, because this is one of those careers that you think it's all just rooted in theory and answers, but it's a lot of thinking and using your expertise to try to come up with the answer. And someone else might come up with a different answer,
Hmm.
right? A different psychologist might be like, no, the function is this. You said that behavior has turned into like one of your least favorite parts of the job. How come?
I feel like in the school setting, there's just so many other factors that can impact behavior. And not just that, it's like, yes, internalizing factors, like I haven't really considered when I was doing a lot of like ABA and behavior work.
Mhm.
But I feel like that plays such a big part in people's behavior.
Mhm.
And just like doing things with fidelity, everything's just so hard in the school setting. I've
Yeah.
just been like very turned off by it. It's just like, it's a lot of
Yeah.
work. If you can do it, great. That's amazing. I would love to learn how and how you get everyone on board, how you
Right.
take good data. It's just
Yeah.
not easily done in the school setting.
Yeah, you learn about it in on the theory side and in grad school, like, "You got this problem? Here's how you figure out
Hmm.
why it's happening, and here's the solution. Just have people do that, and everything will be good to go." And you're like, "Awesome. Here we go," and go into the school, and you're like your new psych all excited, and then you realize, like, I'm in the real world, and if I keep pushing this, all that's going to happen is people are going to hate me and or not come to me to try to get help because I'm not meeting them where they're at and what's realistic. So you take the training that you've gotten for FBAs and BIPs and you kind of like tweak it to
Yeah.
figure out how to help the current situation you're in. I totally agree with that. Would you rather do testing or counseling?
Right now, like in my career, I think testing. I think as I like get more experience and like more things in my toolbox, I might enjoy counseling more. But I do enjoy the assessment part of things and trying to figure things out and working with students in that capacity.
A lot of psychs have been saying that recently, which I don't know why I feel surprised about. Like, it's the biggest part of our job. It shouldn't be surprising that that's what everyone enjoys doing. Maybe because in grad school, like, it's so drilled into you, like, you're not a testing machine. So then, like, everyone thinks that nobody likes
It's a bad
testing.
thing, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Would you rather test side by side, like an L shape, or like across from the student?
What is the shape of the desk?
You tell me, Tiffany, you tell me, what would be your ideal testing environment for the Ramel? No,
And for what
I won't
age?
subject
Like,
you
how
to that.
old is this kid?
Okay, that's true. That's true.
Just because of my office configuration, like I usually sit across from the student. My desk is really
Yeah,
small. So if I was sitting next to them, like there would be no like
it'd
personal
be
space.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of test kits where you really have to sit like in an L shape to see what's going on
I know.
their
That's
page.
it's so confusing, right? Because I think most tests either tell you, like, are standardized or like tell you to sit across, but it's like I don't know what they're pointing to, especially if it's a little kid. Like, they're not telling me number 3 or like option
Hmm
3. They're just like this one, and like then they're doing like some ADHD thing. I'm like, wait, which one was it? And then they think you're telling them they got the wrong answer, so they pick a different one. It's
Yeah.
like, I just need to be next to you to see what your first choice was so we can move on.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and then sometimes you have to point to things on their page, but if you're sitting across
Like,
from
are you a
them,
magician? Like, X-ray vision? Yeah, exactly. How do you know what to point to? You're like, okay, it's this thing right here.
yeah,
You can tell clearly which way I prefer to test. I have issues with the across, but I totally understand it. And iPads are really good for that.
I
Have you done any
cannot wait.
testing
We
with
are getting
iPads?
iPads this year.
Amazing.
I've
They're
been
amazing.
asking for many
Yeah.
years, so
I was a little bit hesitant about them at first, like, "Oh, are they standardized?" Like, me and my freaking brain, like, is it gonna be the same types of results, blah, 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 but, oh, it is so much better, especially just for, like, grabbing what you need, like, you're not fumbling around with, like, 50 different books and materials, and I find it's actually more engaging for the kids because
mhm.
they like being on electronics. It
And
is what
less
it
human
is.
error. I mean, they time things for
Exactly.
you. Like,
They
I love
score
it.
things for you, which is
Way more
so much
efficient.
better. It's
Hmm
efficient and it's actually better because humans will make errors. Like, no matter how great you are, it's going to happen. You don't have to deal with that as much with the iPads. You're going
I
to love them.
agree. I
I
am
feel
so
like a
excited.
salesperson for whoever
No, I
makes
had it for
the
internship in grad school, so it was a big change when I didn't have them anymore.
Yeah. What about paper or electronic rating scales?
Oh, electronic, like all the way. I don't know how people only do paper rating scales. Like, how do
Some
you get
people
them
prefer
back?
them. They
How
prefer
do you
them
get them
still.
back?
I don't know, maybe if you don't work at a big school or something. I don't even get them back on email. I have to remind people like, "Hey, I sent this to you." I've had to remind teachers like multiple times before, which I know I'm not a teacher. I know they get busy, but definitely digital because then you can just reply to the email. You don't
Hmm
have to get a whole new rating scale.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like you
Yeah.
can look at your thread like, "Oh yeah, I emailed them like 50 times. Okay, I'm going to stop harassing them now. I guess I'm not getting that back." Would you rather deal with, I don't know how else to say this, but like difficult parents or difficult staff?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's really hard.
that's why it's a would you rather.
And I wish I knew these questions ahead of time.
No, it's good on the spot.
I think I'd rather have difficult parents because you don't have to deal with them every day. It's
Yeah,
just a couple meetings and you can prep for them.
I agree with that. And I think if you have a good team, it like makes that more bearable. If you had like a hard team to work with, but then you just had like, less difficult parents, it's not as enjoyable. Neither are fun. Nobody likes difficult people in general, right? So, report writing. Do you like it to be quiet? Do you listen to music? How do you report write best?
Typically quiet, but sometimes I would need some like lo-fi like background music. And I usually have like an open door policy for my office, but sometimes you just need to close that door and like cover the
Yeah.
blinds.
Yeah. Cause you get stopped and then you got to get in your groove. And like every time you get interrupted, it's like starting all over.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
get like super distracted like very easily. So any person walking by, like always looking out.
Is your office somewhere right now that's like a highly populated area?
It's like the first office next to the front office, like across from the nurses. So
Okay. Yeah, you
any
better close that
discipline,
door.
yeah, I hear all about it, which is good. Like I get to like stay in the loop, but
Yeah.
for testing purposes, not great.
Oh,
Also next to like
yeah.
the boys' bathroom, so whenever like one of them
And
like
you're in middle
flushes,
school.
it's yeah, and sometimes there's like 20 of them in there. Like
Yeah. Yep, being middle school boys. Okay. I'm like you. I like quiet too. And like that's how I focus. Would you consider yourself a organized school psych, like more of the type A, so to speak, or a go with the flow kind of type B psych?
I'm totally type B, but I think you need some like inkling of like type A to like get your work done, like and not get in
Mm.
trouble. So I
I
try to
did
stay
not expect
organized.
that from you. That's so interesting. But tell me more why you say type B.
So, like, growing up, I've always been, like, super messy, like, not dirty, but, like, I would just have, like, stuff everywhere in my
Mhm.
room. My backpack would be super messy. Like, I really needed, like, executive functioning, like, coaching, like, when I was growing up. Yeah, even, like, when I have, like, a list of things to do, it's not super organized. I try. So I have, like, a list. I try to do, like, checking things off, having timelines, and that really, really helps. But it takes so much out of me to, like, get to that point.
I'm surprised. I think people would be surprised too because you come off like so put together, like you have so much to do. Like you're pregnant, you have another kid, like you're a school psych, you have all your social media and like you're able, it seems like, to stay on top of it all, which just because you're not type A doesn't mean you can't stay on top of it, but like I would have thought you were more type A. I'm going to guess staff enjoy like on a personal level type B people a little bit more. Like you're probably easier to like get along with and people probably feel like more comfortable around you versus a type A person who's like it needs to be this way. You're able to kind of flow better, I think.
I think for the most part, but then as a school psychologist, like you can't be like that, like for parts of our
Sometimes,
job. So that makes it
sometimes.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like my husband hates it. Like he has to always like I'm always late, so it stresses him out. Like when
Yeah.
we're like packing for a trip, he's like, "Why aren't you packed yet?"
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess, and that's where I say like the idea of type A or type B because really like you're not, no one is just one
Right.
thing all the time. But as a type B person, how do you stay organized as a school psychologist?
I try to take a lot of like tips from grad school, internship, and then also online. I think social media has so many resources. Like you provide like all these trackers and like courses to like stay organized. And I think that's so helpful because when you're first starting off, like you really don't know like what's going to work for you. You have to kind of try it out and see if it works. Spreadsheets are very helpful, but I try to keep it like minimal so I don't have to like do too many things. Sticky notes or like just having like important information like posted on the wall.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, any kind of like system that works, but I try to keep it very simple.
that makes sense because there's already so much we have to juggle as psych. So, all right. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about today or you thought would be good for us to?
No, I feel like we talked about like a lot of different like random
I know. I
things.
just like that's as type A as I am, my brain just like jumps. You'd think I have ADHD in like 100 different directions. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. And I look forward to talking with you soon and maybe coming up on to your YouTube channel.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.